And finally, and we have less than a minute left, as you know, Wayne LaPierre is going to be on right after the break in the next segment. Man to man, what do you want to say to him?
Well, certainly he's going to say that background checks don't work. But that is not true. I mean, he's going to tell you that in a couple minutes. Since 1999, 1.7 million people were prevented from getting a firearm because they had a criminal record or a history of mental illness. We stopped those people from getting a gun. Now we've got to make sure they don't have a second option to get the gun. And that's getting a gun from a private seller or the gun show loophole without having a background check. We need to close that loophole.
Senator, is there any gun regulation, any restriction of gun rights that you could accept, that you could vote for?
Well, sure. I think the fact that we have background checks when people buy firearms and we prevent felons and those with serious mental illnesses from acquiring them, I think those make perfect sense.
So a universal background check is something you could support?
The current state of the law is those background checks are in place when a licensed firearm dealer sells firearms. And I think there's a lot of room for improvement on the quality.
Because 40% of the sales are private citizen to private citizen. That's the loophole we talk about.
Well, except that statistic is actually pretty bogus. It's based on a study before the background checks were put into place. And so that study is highly questionable, that 40%.
I don't know. Wayne LaPierre never questioned that study when I brought up that point. He had a question about the feasibility and collecting records. But there is still a loophole that a lot of people would like to correct.
There actually isn't the so-called gun show loophole. That doesn't exist. Any licensed firearm dealer who sells at a gun show has to have a background check. It's a requirement that applies to every licensed firearm dealer. What it doesn't apply to is personal sales one-on-one. And that's true whether it's at a gun show or not.
Senator Schumer, is this the most likely area of agreement, a universal background check, even more than an assault weapons ban or magazine ban?
I'd say this is the sweet spot in terms of actually making us safer and having a good chance of passing. This is it. Right now, I'm the author of a universal background check bill. I am talking to pro-gun Democrats, excuse me, and Republicans. And I think you're going to see, a very likelihood in the next week or two, a proposal that has broad support for universal background checks. And I would say this to my friend Ted. If you are someone who's not a felon, you go into a gun store, a registered firearm dealer, and buy 20 guns, which you can. He'll do a background check on you. You can sell them to anyone you want, felon or anybody else. So there are huge holes in this law. And I would say this. The last time we made progress on the pro-gun safety side was tightening up this law for mentally ill people in 2007. I carried the law, and the NRA actually didn't oppose it. So I think this is the best chance of getting something done, and I think you're going to find much broader support than we ever imagined.
Faced with an uphill battle in Congress, the president took his campaign for new gun control measures on the road today.
We're not going to wait until the next Newtown.
A central component of the president's plan is requiring virtually anybody buying a gun to get a background check. But his audience in Minneapolis has seen firsthand that that's not enough. Last September, just a few miles from where the president spoke, Minnesota suffered its worst ever mass shooting. 36-year-old Andrew Engeldinger went on a rampage at this sign store after he was fired, shooting and killing 6 employees before turning the gun on himself. According to Engeldinger's parents, he was mentally ill and had refused treatment. But here's the thing, he legally bought his gun here after passing a background check.
Our son struggled for years with mental illness. In the last few years, we have no longer had contact with us.
The local sheriff has met with President Obama and believes the current system simply misses too much.
We've identified gaping holes in the background checks. And it's really become what is America's dirty little secret about these background checks.
Last year, there were 9 mass killings in the U.S. 8 of the gunmen had a history of mental illness. A background check is only as good as the database used to check a gun buyer's record. Consider this, only 12 states actively submit mental health records to the federal database. The president has proposed fixing this by giving states money to improve record keeping and by urging doctors to report credible threats of violence to law enforcement. Mental health experts say the other key to fixing the problem is identifying and treating those with mental illness at a young age. The White House wants to give states the resources to do that, but of course, Diane, that is going to require money, and it is also the kind of thing that will take a long time to actually show results.
A long time. How soon? What is the soonest?
Well, it's going to take a while because you have to go in. You're establishing a system to go in and identify people, treat them, and then give the mental health experts the ability to report who they are concerned about to federal law enforcement, something they are not normally inclined to do. But
you're saying the president's out firing up the public because his own team has been a little bit hesitant?
No doubt. The leader of his battle in the Senate, Harry Reid, with George Stephanopoulos on Sunday on This Week, saying that he's not even convinced on all of the president's plan.
Okay, Jonathan Karl, thanks so much.